guys, we're going to continue in the book, The Spirit of the Earth. We're on part 3, chapter 1. Without a doubt, the most remarkable feature of hunter language and artifice in our own time, and it was presumably true for Paleolithic times as well, is it animalness? Over the past 500 years, ethnographic inquiry has repeatedly turned up this phenomenon. We see it in the Ice Age fauna adorning cave walls at Altamira, northwestern Spain and France. Indeed, in art speech, we might call it packed and painted on rock surfaces the world over. At many a museum, you will find animal vestige, fish hooks, spears, and harpoon tip, knife and spear, club handles, or the straightforwardly animal icons collected from hunting societies globally, crafted of bone, wood, ivory, stone, tooth, antler, and metal. It is the awesome intellect of that hairless, bibbed Homo imaging in artifice the form of the other than human being out there and flexed within. Artifice does not do justice to what is actually going on here, for these animalized creations are not inherited nor inanimate nor mere representation. On the contrary, they are believed by their creators to embody the power, the being, the life of their fleshy corporal counterparts. Hunters maintain that all of nature is empowered, is conscious, intellect, sensate, and articulate. They have drilled this into anthropologists for years. To render a creature's likeness in another substance, be it bone, wood, stone, clay, ivory, or what have you, means to inject its personhood and powers into that substance, as well as to confer upon it the power inherited in the new skin. Hunters-gatherers conceive of themselves, of Homo sapiens, as the consummate imagers of creation. By imaging a creature in artifact, humans consort with both the creature and the substance, what we would call the medium. Such creatures pulsate with animal as well as material, bone, ivory, wood, stone, etc. power. It is Homo, the compulsive cosmic artificer, who has a unique anatomy and mind to express these other life forms in interpenetrating artilic consciousness images. Imaginations are images. Hunting people seem convinced that this is what humans do and are to do with those marvelous hands of theirs, stimulated by that ceaselessly, even in sleep, imaging mind. Putting it in my terms, this is humanity's anatomical and neurobiological trick. Herein lie the real power and beauty, the deepest meaning of all human artifice in its powers of association, of connection. Artifice enables the craftsman to flow into another shape, another place of being, operating as a key. It unlocks the door to the realm of another being with which the person merges. Artifice thus assists in setting the term selflessness. Initially, I believe this was a special property of artifice, making more vivid, even more numinous, and wondrously terrifying the realm of true humanness, or true self. For in primal artifice, if ethnography is a guide, all was magical artifice and creative, connecting its wielder and creator to the world about. It worked, however, only as long as mankind could control its immense capacity for hubris and fear, and remain cognizant of the metaphysical hazards of adopting a foreign technology, as happened when old world met new. Let us consider taking these genesis of human artifice out of the realm of imperative and cruelly functional into the realm of the magical and aesthetic, but above all, the communicative. Throughout our evolutionary transit, obtaining food and shelter and eventually clothing were mundane tasks that had always worked, so long as society acknowledged death as acceptable and kept the pressure on the landscape modest. Necessity is the mother of invention. May well hold the Neolithic people and their spiritual heirs, but it does not necessarily work, I believe. For Paleolithic societies and their antecedents, it is revealing that the lure of European trade goods to aboriginals around the world was at first aesthetic and spiritual, an athletic and spiritual communication with the place itself and with the bearers of these novel tidings. The savages knew they did not require all of the European hardware to manage their lives. The initial appeal was hardly practical in the usual sense of the term. Historians recorded that many an object of strict utility was cannibalized or otherwise redefined in the early years of contact and sported anew as adornment. Copper pots were cut up into earrings, axe heads worn about the neck as pendants, and so forth. Such articles bespoke a newly expanded context of magic, of power, of humanness, a subtle and, as it turned out, dangerously changing definition of humanness in relation to place. The wholesale incorporation of such alien artifice was tantamount to speaking an alien tongue, with attendant relining of spiritual power relationships. Homo's other great trick is speech. For hunting peoples, the fundamental principle has always been to learn the language which is power of the other than human being. One way is hunters do so, though not the only way, is by projecting themselves into the spiritual physical space of other than human persons, animals or plants. In the ecstatic experience known to ethnologists as the vision quest, as in Japan's experience, boys are coached for years in the discipline of solitary fasting and praying to prepare them for the visionary encounter. One summer in a wood, he was to examine his ambitions and prostrate himself through ritual of fasting, thirsting, sleeplessness, fierce concentration on the goal of seeing and hearing a well-disposed Manito weeping and blackening his face with charcoal from the fireplace and rubbing ashes into his hair. He recalled all that he heard about power, and his ears were pleas of grandparents and parents to make something of himself, to fill his emptiness. To the Manitos he declared it pitiableness, his utter dependence on spiritual aid, the desperateness of life through the miasma of hysterical fear. There came to the fortunate seeker, dry-mouthed, emptied belly, and light-headed, a kind-spirited voice that assured my grandson, "Here is something with which to amuse yourself." Girls followed a parallel regimen, although their power experience when it came tended to be more of the earth, while the boys was of animal. Visions were vivid engagements with potent earth being in suspended time. The visitor taught the child is strong. Nature for hunter-gatherers throughout recorded time. You imagine this held true for Paleolithic hunters is above all song. Power songs, songs with flattering words. There are always songs of courtesy, conveying care and respect. Because he who comes looks so fine, with the caribou lure song of Jerome Anton Montagnus Nasby from the Quebec-Labrador Peninsula. The old man had dreamed it a long time ago. Frank Speck was told in 1925 by the hunter's grandson. Anton had sunk it with courting, hunting, caribou persons over the years, and then evidently he taught it to the others of the community who continued using it to consume, with flatter, and court caribou after his death. As it happens, the song has an old lineage among the Indians of this region of Canada. James Mackenzie, agent for the Northwest Company, recorded a nearly identical version well over 100 years earlier in the chant. Sung, he said, in a sort of ecstasy. He comes, I see him, he is dressed very fine. The details of its survival are not of much interest to most of us now. What is important is the man, the hunter, realized the animal spoke languages human persons were capable of learning, on animal terms and in their realm. So man, the hunter, imagined, at least he could learn some essential ingredient of the animal songs, as Speck and Mackenzie vividly witnessed. Women in hunting societies tended to have a complementary revelation at first menstruation, being then made privy to the earth. Let me see how much longer this is. Plants' power of creation, procreation, sustenance, which they housed within themselves. They in turn would learn the lyrics and music of plants beings who were by definition medicine beings. As with artifacts, so with these learned songs, each is alive with the power of its other than human source and represents a courteous communion with that being. Tempered, this is the knowledge that in recent times anyway, hunters have occasionally, if not habitually, taken an inherent powerful object and purposely desecrated it to offend the spirit keepers and through the retaliation produce a desired end. This synonymous strategy is most commonly used in weather control, weather magic, about which I have more to say later, where the usual aspect of courtesy is inverted in the service of what appears to be strictly human purposes. One further point worth considering is that even everyday mundane speech is cautious. Since speech is by definition powerful, it is creative, reaching beyond ourselves. Throughout recorded history, hunters have been very circumspect in what they say, believing they are being heard by a sentient, conscious universe, a gallery of intelligent beings who, if offered by injustice worlds, ridicule, bragging, undue familiarity, profanity, etc., can take reprisal, usually by a steadfast refusal to be taken as food or by inflicting disease or doing other violence. Consider walruses. Walruses are like people, the Eskimos say. They hear you when you talk. If you brag, they might get you for it. If you never hunted them before, cautioned one hunter, I'll tell you something now. Remember, when you hunt walruses, you must not act like a man. Do not be arrogant. Be humble. Always respect the walruses and watch them closely when you hunt them. Since animal and plants being eavesdropped on our conversation, it behoves us to refer to them respectfully, if we wish to cultivate their favor. If humans still wish to yield themselves, even myths as sacred narratives from the beginning of creation, that mind of each generation of the ordained relations between all sentient beings as stories that explain the course and nature of life from archipel original episodes. Even these are thought to be alive and highly charged. Many have seasonality to their telling. Speaking to them out of season is to summon their still living principles, originals, out of context, which offends them. It's not much if something is conjured up in speech and art or artifice, as it is that connections, linkage, or hinges that are made between things, or better yet, between beings. There is a handshake. Mythology maintains that all creation existed first as thought, which was then uttered as speech, by which powers or primal beings took shape, or were given space in which to function. These primal beings included animal beings, among them the notorious trickster transformer, created in turn by manual artifice. Again, so the stories say. Hunters think of humankind as the keepers of these formulatic stories and narrators and symbolizers of the blueprint of creation. They believe themselves responsible for repeating these tales in order to keep them alive and further to regenerate the system. Mankind, in fine, has a mind uniquely capable of imagining the vast yet interconnected network of creation and rendering it in a language and material structure. In this sense, hunters view themselves as a historian regenerators and artist regenerators. This, for them, is the great calling of our kind. Okay, we have one more part in this chapter, and we'll be done chapter 1. Is there more? No, just one more part. So, this is the book, In the Spirit of the Earth. And I'll see you next time. Guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.